Hello, beautiful people. Welcome back to another episode of the Bamboo Season Podcast, the podcast where you hear stories of transformation, growth, resilience, people who got themselves out the mud from an ugly place and grew into a beautiful bamboo tree. This podcast is sponsored by Dorian Wormsley Wellness, a coaching business to help you build a strong body and clear mind through sobriety and fitness. Now, January is Human Trafficking Awareness Month. I live here in Las Vegas, and that is one of the issues we do have in this city, unfortunately. And my guest today was also trafficked at a very young age, and that was where her story started. But now she's an amazing mother, real estate investor, and advocate for human trafficking. I bring you Asia Duncan.
Hi. Hello.
Denise.
Asia Denise, yes.
Asia Denise Duncan.
Asia Denise Duncan.
Now,
Hi.
before we hopped on, you said, would you mean my whole name? What was your whole name?
It was Heaven. So when you were like, is it okay to call you Asia Denise and Asia Duncan? I was like, well, that's one of the many.
Yeah.
So it just made me think of the time period, since we're talking to Human Trafficking Awareness Month, that period of time when I was trafficked. I went through several names. I had several fake identities. You almost have to get rebirthed into that lifestyle. So now I can smile and share my story with you, but that wasn't always the case. So yeah.
And, I got to be honest, I'm very proud of you.
Thank you.
The short time I met you, because right when I met you, you literally had told me, I think you just became comfortable with telling your story of this that you had went through.
Yeah.
And I know how hard it is to tell your stories, whatever your trauma was or things you went through. It's, a lot of shame involved, a lot of, you don't want to be judged. And I like to encourage people to, eventually heal that part of them, because somebody else is literally where you were.
Yes.
And doesn't want to feel alone,
Yes.
especially with something like human trafficking.
Yes.
There's girls out there who maybe they're watching this, or somebody who's going to see it and they're stuck in that life.
Yes.
They just got out, don't know what to do. And then I meet somebody like you, and you just told me all this, and I'm like, well, you didn't tell me all that. You told me what you do. You're a real estate investor and you have businesses that you invest in. And I'm like, oh, great. But you're like, also, boom, boom, boom. I'm like, oh, damn, I definitely need to hear more of this story,
Right.
And now that you are advocate also for the Cupcake Girls here in Las Vegas,
Yes.
which is a nonprofit that helps women who are in sex work, trying to get out of sex work, were in sex work and just need help. Oh, sorry.
Okay.
You correct me.
Correction on that. We're not, we're a rights, we're a rights organization, not a rescue. So we don't necessarily only help if you're trying to get out of sex work. We meet you where you are. So for folks who are in sex work, who are just not being supported, because that's an industry that's entirely unsupported, unfunded, there's really no health checks, mental health checks. Do they have food insecurity? Are they being housed? What are their relationship and financial dynamics? No one's going in there and saying, hey, are you okay?
Yeah.
So the organization does that, whether you're choosing to be in sex work, because we believe sex work is a job. So if you choose to be in there, but if you're going to be in there and you need supportive services, resources, or the things that we can provide, then we can fill in that gap. And then but our priority is we're an anti-trafficking organization. So we focus on sex trafficking survivors and trauma recovery and helping them rebuild their life. And what does that look like? Because, again, in the same instance where with sex workers, we give them that same power over their decisions. We do the same thing with trafficking survivors. If you're currently being trafficked and you're not trying to leave your situation, well, what does that look like, and how can we support you in that dynamic to where it's safe for you and safe for the organization? You know what I'm saying?
And what is your role with the Cupcake Girls exactly?
Director of the Resource Center.
And before we get too far, I want to shout out Danielle Miller.
Yes.
Because she is on the board, correct?
She is.
Of the Cupcake Girls.
And she's on my committee.
Hey, and I felt so bad because once we finished wrapping up our episode we did together a few weeks ago, I was like completely forgot to give you your shout out, or for her to shout that out.
Yeah.
Just complete space. So I definitely want to shout her out for that. She's an amazing lawyer, amazing person. And before you got to the point where you're at now,
yes,
mother of two beautiful boys, part of the Cupcake Girls, real estate investor, all these great things you're doing, it started with you being trafficked at the age of 17?
Yes.
Or 17 you were groomed?
So 17 was the grooming process. I didn't leave with him till I was 18. I knew it was going to be too much drama anyway. I have very strong parents. So all the things he was telling me to tell them, I'm like, bro, this isn't going to work until I'm 18. Because at 18, I could just look at them and say, hey, I'm going. Versus at 17, my parents were very much involved and they weren't having it. And both of them definitely are, you don't want to play with my parents.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of the beauty and the things positive that I do talk about my childhood came from the fact that I have parents who have great reputations. Back then it was street credit. It wasn't anything like that, but they had a great street credit to where it took a very manipulative, it took me to be in another city. It took me to be outside of my neighborhood for this to happen because it was never going to happen in my neighborhood because I was very well protected in that neighborhood.
So you said you were groomed at 17. What can you kind of explain what grooming is and how your experience was?
So the process of grooming just is a process of getting to know, your victim, essentially, a trafficker, getting to know and kind of feeding that individual information to get them to do what they want them to do. So in my instance, he wanted me to leave and go with him across country. So, and then believe all these things like he was a businessman and entrepreneur. And he was all those things. It's just that he left out a thing, a big thing, an overarching thing.
I don't want to cut you off, but I saw a joke similar where he was like, a guy on the internet was like, oh yeah, girl, I live in a gated community. I was like, girl, it's prison.
Right, exactly. So, and by the time I found out the thing, it was like plane booked, on the plane, at the airport, and now you don't have a choice. I just gave this person my ID, my social security card. Now he's introducing me to new language, like, oh, I'm also a pimp and this is what I'm gonna do and this was, and I'm like, whoa. So there was really no room to backtrack. I already had the story prepared with my family. So grooming was already setting me up to have that story with my family. So I was already interning, and he slowly, I don't remember verbatim and all the things he told me to tell my parents, but I was slowly letting them know that I was not gonna be here over the summer and I was gonna be somewhere else.
And you mentioned to me before that there's different types of groomers.
There's different types of traffickers.
Traffickers, yeah. Can you touch on those?
So some of the three most common are CEO, Romeo, and Gorilla. So CEO is the trafficker that's going to help just, when it comes to hopes, dreams, maybe you're trying to be a model or a musician or a singer. He's kind of feeding you lines and manipulating you like, oh, I'm going to make you a star, right? Then you have the Romeo. In my case, mine was like a hybrid between Romeo and CEO, where it's like, hey, I thought I had this boyfriend and mentor. I knew he was a little older than me. He definitely didn't say 17 years older than me. So I'm like, oh, he's a little older than me. He can be these things, protector, all the things I didn't have in my home at the particular time. Because although I did have a father, there was still a lot of healing to do in that space because he missed a good portion of my life, So he came in and was, filling all these gaps with my daddy issues. And then there is the gorilla pimp, which is what we see a lot in the movies where, you're smacking females. Yeah. I don't know if we can curse on here, but it's like,
except fuck you want.
Okay.
It fucking matter.
So it's like, you're smacking bitches.
So the reason why is because there's nothing pretty about what you went through.
Nothing
Nothing
at all.
It was fucking ugly. It was hard. It was traumatizing. And cussing's the way, I don't want to say it's the only way, but it's putting a stamp on it like, I got fucking trafficked. Oh no, I got trafficked. And no, you got fucking trafficked.
Yeah.
You got fucking gorilla pimped. So yeah, sorry, but cussing is loud. Go ahead, continue.
So in those particular situations, so with gorilla pimp, it's more violence. There's more, he might try to get you hooked on drugs, or if you are hooked on drugs, and he's continuously feeding that habit. So there's just those, basic ones. And if you go to the Cupcake Girls website, it clearly defines trafficking versus sex work. Yeah. And we do a lot of education around trafficking, so you can always come to something that I speak at where I lay out like all the different roles.
So at 17, you meet your groomer. He grooms you, so he plays the role. Hey, I'm going to be your boyfriend. You're pretty much he's your boyfriend. Yeah. You're in, especially at that young age, like
man,
you're head over heels. You're loving him, whatever. So then you hit 18. And he kind of tells you, hey, tell your parents this. We're going to go to California. You were in New York at the time.
Yeah, and I really wanted to go to California. Yeah. We made a bunch of pit stops, but I really wanted to go to California.
You drove?
No. Well, we flew,
yeah.
But he didn't fly me straight here. It was like I don't remember the states that we stopped in, but we stopped at different states, and I got different IDs. Like he really had this whole thing thought out when I initially thought it was like an impromptu thing. Like, yes, he was saying we were going to do it, but when he actually booked, I thought it was like a Surprise.
Did he tell you why you were going to California? Like when he said, hey, we're going to go just to...
We both wanted to go to California. Okay. So when I had met him, we had aligned goals. I actually thought I was going to be a journalist. I'm from New York, so I was constantly going to the city. I was an intern for a couple of tri-state magazines at the time. I was interning from 16, 17, thinking I was going to, get my way into production or just more behind the scenes then. So it wasn't going to California like I was trying to be a model or singer, but I'm like, man, I want to do real estate. I knew I wanted to do that. And he was really the only person that said you don't need college for real estate. That's probably the only thing he said that was truthful, because that's actually truthful. But everything else was just bullshit.
And where in New York are you from?
Westchester. Ossining, New York specifically, but Westchester.
Okay. And you still got family there?
Yeah, a little bit left. But everyone's kind of, gentrification is happening all over.
Yeah.
New York is no different. So my little neighborhood has transitioned a lot, definitely pushed out a lot of the Black, brown community.
What do you think about him drew you to him?
Honestly, I wasn't drawn to him. I was at the Puerto Rican Day Parade in 2004. I was an intern for a magazine. I wanted to interview enough celebrities or artists or, the floats or the businesses to where the magazine would actually publish something that I was putting out. I was just hustling, The editor at the time gave me a camera guy, gave me instructions, sent me to the parade, and I'm ready to come back with a story. Him and his crew happened to be on the end of all the floats, so I thought he was a business owner, which he was. And I was just like, okay, like he was flirting and doing that. And I said, bro, no, because he did come off as like a guy who, that wasn't for me in a sense of very flashy, very celebrity, very like, and I'm just like, I'm knowing I'm 17, I'm lying to people telling them I'm like 19, 20, but I'm just knowing that, maybe we're not on each other's level, like even style wise, even money wise, it was very obvious he had a lot of things and I didn't. So I was just like, definitely not going to be up his alley because of so many reasons. And he picked me out and made me feel selected. Like, no, I actually came over here to talk to you. I want to talk to you. So I would be interested to find out what in me made him want to talk to me. Cause I was really, I said I want to talk to the business owner and he happened to be the business owner. But other than that, he kind of made me feel like he selected me out of the crowd and wanted to talk to me. And then that's how the conversation started.
Do you think there's a difference of like the type of traffickers that go after younger and more and older? Or are they the same kind of person? Do you see one more? Are they both predators? Are they, like?
Well, so my trafficking journey was one guy, one situation. I met a lot of girls along the way who had bounced around from pimp to pimp. And I never did. I only know him, and that was my only experience. Once I was done with that, I was done. So that side of it, in terms of the mindset of that, it's almost me asking me a question about the mindset of a man. I have no clue. You know what I mean? I just have like my experience on the other side as a female and as someone that's like, okay, like I would love to be with a guy like this, but I don't think I'm the girl. Do you know what I'm saying? So there was still underlying insecurity. There was underlying me knowing I'm lying about my age. So eventually we'd have to get there. There's just like, he owns a business. I'm about to graduate high school. Like, you understand what I mean? Like, we were just not on each other's level, but the goal was to get there and imagine. And there was so much going on in my life. I'm like, oh, imagine if I could talk to a guy like this. You know what I'm saying? How could he help me? How could he help my family? We were going through stuff at the time. So it was also like, the things that he was feeding me, it was kind of, I was listening to it with a little bit more of an open ear because I went home every night with the challenges that my family was facing.
All right. So then now you go to California, you send you to California, you go by yourself with a friend.
With a friend.
Yeah, go to a friend.
Rest in peace to my friend.
And what was her name?
Amy is her name.
Okay. I was just giving you proper.
Yeah.
Proper.
Amy is her name. Rest in peace to Amy.
Proper shout out.
Yeah.
18, you're in California. Was it LA?
Flew into LA, never been to LA.
Okay.
So I'm just like, holy cow, I'm in LA. A beautiful girl picks me up. I mean, gorgeous. She had to be like, look like Mariah Carey and Alicia Keys. Her car was bomb. Her house was bomb. She looked bomb.
Damn.
And she became.
What was her name?
Her name was, I can't say her name.
Oh, yeah, don't, sorry.
Yeah, I'm not going to say her name. But we're going to give her a fake name. Let's just say,
Don't even give her name because you'll fuck around and say the real one.
Yeah. So she, she was a beautiful girl and she became the like, oh, I want to be like that. Now I have something to look like. If I do what he says, the goal is to get like her, right? The freedom, the car, the house, the money, right? The goal was for me to get there.
Yeah.
But here I am, and she's also assisting him and like, oh yeah, if you just listen to him and follow instructions, do this and do that and da-da-da. She's saying the same things he was saying. And it just was like, and we're not going to fight, and you like me, and it's okay. And like, what? He's your boyfriend too? Like, how does this work? But you're my friend, and you're not mad that we're like, she's like, oh no, girl. Like, it was just like a friendship. It made me feel like it was like a sister relationship. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I'm the firstborn, so I had a lot of responsibility. So I didn't have an older sister. I didn't have someone to ask questions to and look up to. She became that person, who I was like, okay, how do you do this? How do you do that? Even as a young woman developing, like my body, my hygiene, my hair, all of those things she taught me how to do. I had very curly hair. She's like, girl, you don't need a perm. I don't need a perm. Well, how do I take care of it without a perm? She taught me how to do that. My body, my pH, she introduced me to pH, essential oils and other type. It was a lot of that. She knew I was going to need therapies. So she introduced me to a lot of that first. And I spent a lot more time with her once I got to California. And then I'm just like, where's the guy? Where's he?
So when you got there, when did he break it down to you, like what it was?
He really didn't. She did.
Oh.
She did, because then she took me to Vegas.
Okay.
And before we went to Vegas, we had to stop at another place to give me another fake ID. And then she gave me the lay of the land. And then I came through Vegas. And then it was like a weekend thing. We would just come here and leave, come in and come out.
So the very first time you go to Vegas, was it your first time like working?
It was my first time working.
And what was the conversation she had with you, letting you know,
We're going to go out and have drinks.
That's what she told you?
Yeah. And we were not having drinks.
So you went out. You came to Vegas.
Yes.
Hey, girl, we're going to go have drinks.
Yes.
You're going to have drinks.
She told me we were going to talk to people, mostly older white men, follow her lead. Just, we're not really going to drink. Pretend that you're drinking. Like, just be pretty and smile. Like, pretty much I just had to be pretty and smile.
And
she did all the talking.
And then okay, hold on.
And then next thing you know, she was handing me money. And I'm like, oh, we're making money. And we did go upstairs. Like, we had to dance. Like, it was like real, it was a real service.
That's what I was getting to. So, like, do you remember where you went?
Yeah, all the nice places.
What was the first place?
Probably, we parked somewhere. These places don't even exist anymore. This was early 2000s. So I don't know, like Harrah's is probably the only one still around.
So you're there. She's telling you, hey, girl, just follow my lead.
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And so then you're you're kind of unsure of what's going down.
I don't know what the heck is going on. At this point, I'm just like, I need money. He told me to listen to her. When I talked to him, I didn't ask many questions. It was kind of like I was thrusted into this. I was trying to be a grown up. So I didn't want to like panic, but I was scared as fuck.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I didn't want to panic. I didn't want to do anything that would make her call him when he felt like he trusted me. He told me to give, like, if anything was uncomfortable, he wanted me to, I just wanted to be strong.
Yeah.
I wanted to show him that, like, I'm down for him. I wanted to, just do all of this stuff that he wanted me to do so that we can get closer to the goal, which was me being in real estate.
and I'm not laughing at the trafficking part. So that's so interesting. So then you didn't know what's going on. You guys go upstairs, you dance, whatever. You get your money. Mm-hmm. You come back and forth from here to California every few weekends or whatever. And was there a point that clicked in your mind of like what it was you were doing?
Well, she told me, she was like, we're hoes. And I'm like, what's a hoe? And he's a pimp. And I'm like, what's a pimp? And I thought pimps were like Snoop Dogg rappers. Like, that's what
Magic Don Juan.
Yeah, that's what it looked like.
Money Mike.
Mean, the houses, the cars, him, the jewelry, her, it all was given
pimp.
I didn't know pimp. It was giving rapper. It was giving money. It was giving celebrity. He could have been a drug dealer. I don't know. At that time, that was being glorified too. You couldn't tell the difference between a drug dealer and someone who was actually an athlete or a rapper because it's still with the furs and the jewelry. It was just a look, Yeah. So at that particular time, I was like, okay, this looks good. I'm safe. I'm not doing anything. They didn't, like, at first, I don't even think she broke down the legality of me. I think she said we only get in trouble if we solicit. You know what I'm saying? So as long as we weren't soliciting people, we were not getting in trouble.
Okay.
So, of course, that was a lie because I think Vegas has like no entrapment. So we definitely got caught up with the soliciting or whatever. But so she just, and we went a lot of places, not just Vegas. We were traveling. Once I was with her though, she drove there was the one flight, and then from there on, we were driving all over the country.
Just you and her?
Just me and her, and sometimes he would send other girls. I mean, it was like a revolving door.
Shit.
Yeah, it was a revolving door.
And as you're going through this and doing this, did you kind of like think to yourself and be like, all right, I'm in? Like once you told you're a hoe and doing all these things, you kind of just accepted like, fuck it.
No, I didn't accept that. What I accepted was the fact that a couple of things. My mother was in a shelter at the particular time.
Okay.
I did not want to go back to live with my father. I did not want to have my parents tell me I told you so, because I had a lot of pride for a young, entitled teenager who's been running away since she was 15. Like I had all this stuff going on. So I had to prove it to them. And I was like, if I could, stick this out for a few years, I could be like her, and then I could start businesses. And as long as I'm paying him, he's happy. He didn't care how you was paying him. You just had to be paying him. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So eventually I can start a business or do something else. Do you get what I'm saying? It wasn't supposed to stay with me doing that and her and all the other things. And it didn't. It did evolve into something else. But in terms of me realizing it settled on me probably after a year, to be honest. At first, I was just like, man, let me survive. Let me just try to let my mom know where I'm at. Let me make sure I call her every so often so she's not worried. She still was worried. She still put out a missing persons report. She still didn't understand why she couldn't have my phone number. She still was, trying to track me. But I had mailboxes again all over the country. He did not keep me in one place, and everything was monitored. So she listened to every call that I was on with my parents. If I wasn't with her, I was with him. He listened to every call there was no privacy.
Damn.
And even to the point where one time he even called my mom and was like, yo, I'm gonna send her home. She's doing X, Y, and Z. And my mom was like, what are you doing to that man? He treats you so well. He's helping us out. Like, she attacked me. And I was just like, I couldn't even say it because he was watching. And it was just like nothing. And he had just, beat the shit out of me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But he set it up real perfect to where he called my mom, made it sound like, oh, she's about to get a ticket home. You know what I mean? And my mom immediately, was just like, oh my God, she was playfully doing it, because I'm sure if she was really concerned, she probably would have asked the right questions. But at that particular time, it was just like, oh, you better treat him nice. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. She's
probably just thinking, I don't even know what she was thinking. I can't think for her, but you know what I'm saying? It was just one of those things. And I couldn't say anything. All I said was, okay, Mom, and just hung up the phone because he was sitting right there. So I was scared that if I would have said what was really happening, told her what we were really doing, I was in fear for my life. I saw what he was capable of. He's put his hands on me before. I was like, I'm not dealing with this. So once I realized that, okay, you can get in trouble, and trouble meant violence, then I was like, all right, all I got to do is listen to what you say. So then I mastered that. I mastered how to get guys to pay me to do as little work as possible, to be honest.
And, throughout the years, I've met people, I've known people on both ends, of that life. And it's interesting, man. Everybody's story is a little different, and it's unfortunate the ones who are against their will at some point.
Yes.
For you, did you ever feel like you not numbed yourself, but kind of just...
I definitely numbed myself.
Spaced out, like you were just a shell.
Yeah. No, I was a shell. Once he told me that Denise Duncan was dead and heaven was here, and at that point I never saw my nameplate. Remember back in the day, never saw my nameplate again, never saw my name earrings, never saw my real ID, never saw my birth certificate. I never saw my social security card ever again for like 7 years. Damn. So for me, I really did have another identity because he used my information and did all the things he wanted to do with it. And, but for the most part, I was constantly having fake names, fake IDs, one state to another, always ready to go, always a bag packed, always backing up in the driveway, ready to run, shut it down, always thinking about being one step ahead of the cops, vice, whoever, you know what I'm saying? Because, for him, he was always trying to protect himself. So for girls, it's like, okay, you go to jail, you come back out of jail in 24 hours. But for him, he was going to be going for trafficking. Yeah. And again, I didn't even know the word trafficking then. So again, even at that particular point, I'm like, okay, he's a pimp and we're hoes. And at that particular point, to me, I'm like, well, a hoe, what do I want to be? A hoe that gets paid or a hoe that doesn't? Do you know? But these are the things he put in my head. Yeah. I'm like, well, if I'm going to be sleeping with guys and I'm already going to be out there and I was already promiscuous and out there, then I might as well get paid for it, was my mentality. Yeah. I wasn't thinking about it like, like that I wasn't thinking about trafficking at the particular time. It was years later that he brought up the word trafficking because I think he was in fear. It was like suspicions that he was going to get caught, and then we had to like shut everything down. I mean, he deleted every journal. I had journals on I had stories. When I tell you I was going to write a book, I had stories of going on dates because they weren't. Some of these guys are hilarious.
I'm sure I've heard
like
stories.
I've had crazy stories, and I wanted just stories because these I'm like I can't make this shit up. This is like real stuff.
Are you familiar with Heidi Fleiss?
I am. She got, again, that was around the time when she went down in California.
Oh, yeah. Sounds about right.
Everybody got really scared. When she was on trial, we watched that like every day.
Because I watched the documentary on her a few years ago. Wow, it was a while ago now. But a few years ago, it was like it was by the BBC, I believe. But it was during the period when she was being investigated, going to court, and she's, talking about it and just sharing all the stuff of everything. And I'm like, it's so crazy. She was saying how Paramount Pictures had her on payroll, and she was telling stories and sharing stories. Like when the interview asked her, "What's one of the craziest stories you ever heard?" And she said, "Oh, this guy paid me $30,000 to put the hook side inside him." And I was like, oh.
But that's what I'm saying. So that's why even for sometimes the shame and the guilt came with feeling like, why did I stay so long? But it was very easy because again, people were paying me to do things that I wasn't doing in real life, And when you think about like Heidi Fleiss and people like her, I didn't. Again, I didn't understand trafficking. He fed me the information he wanted me to have. I read books on memoirs of a geisha, right? Japanese women who entertain men. Read sales books and every time I would read a sales book, he was just like, imagine, this is your product, this is your business. So he was cultivating a beast, but in the wrong area. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was crazy. But yeah, I definitely remember that story vividly, but I purposely just blanked out a lot of stuff because I didn't want to remember people's names. I didn't want to ever be able to write a tell-all. Like, I just felt like when you paid me, that's what you got. You got an NDA. You know what I mean? I wasn't there to stay. I wasn't trying to break up anybody's home. I was truly there to listen and, be this fantasy or be this person or whatever. And, when we left, if you didn't call me, I didn't call you. So that's pretty much what it was.
So now that you're, I don't know how long into it, but like, was there ever a point where in your head, because I know you said earlier, like, I'm gonna do it for X amount of years and get out. Was there ever a point in your head where you were like, at this point, I'm gonna leave?
I had several points, but in true pimp fashion, he evolved as well. So, every time I wanted to leave, he had that other thing. When I wanted to leave, I wanted to go back to school. He was like, I'll send you to school. You know what I mean? When I wanted to leave and excuse me, just anything I wanted to do, he made it so convenient. I'm like, I want a restaurant. I want my mother to have a restaurant. Oh, okay, well, open your mother a restaurant. Like anything that I wanted. At this particular time, I didn't realize I was also, making him the most money and doing all of this stuff. And I'm just like, okay, But I also had built, I figured out how to survive in that world. And I had built, I really protected the women that I was around and the women that we spent a lot of time together, traveling the road, making money. We were each other's eyes and ears, and I built a sisterhood relationship with a lot of these women. It was never supposed to be stronger than the relationship that I built with him, but that's when I first started realizing, like, holy shit, like, you're a leader, and people look up to you, and they're actually wanting to be like you because you're glorifying this shit, because that's what he has trained me to do. Like, I was literally trained to glorify and train.
What's it called? HBIC.
Yes. And it's like, then I realized that, like, oh no, some of their lives were really being ruined. And because they were coming in with different issues, whether they didn't have their kids. And I remember one of the girls, he told her to give up custody of her daughter. I didn't have any kids, but, and I was like, custody of your daughter? Absolutely not. And then I got beat for that. You know what I'm saying? Because and when she did, it was the worst thing that she ever did, and it ruined her life. You know what I'm saying? Because she was already struggling with wanting to get custody, but now you're going to give it away thinking he's going to get it back for you. He never got it back. And she lost her kid. You know what I'm saying? So it's just a lot of things, whether it was drug issues. Some of the girls who were on drugs, it was like recovery because you weren't allowed to do drugs with us. There was no drugs, no alcohol allowed while you were working. But even them, it's just like, could they if there was a resource center, right? What I'm trying to build right now, could there have been a better way for them to, have recovery and healing and therapies without needing to be with a pimp that just didn't have you do drugs? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That he's just one of the ones that don't, that be like, okay, I'm not letting you do drugs. But it's like, eventually, when shit was going down, he was letting the girls do drugs. Like when his money was low, it's like, I don't care what you do whatever you got to do, just bring home the money.
Just bring home the money. Damn.
It's like, when did you get like that?
And how long did you work for him?
Shit. I mean, what I consider work, about 3 years, but I was in and out of that relationship paying that man for like 7 years.
So after the 3 years, what happened after that? That was different.
Nothing. Only thing that happened after that was different was I was actually able to start investing in real estate and do something else. I considered myself a consensual sex worker at that particular time because I had my freedom.
Yeah.
I had my own place. I had my family back together again. My mom still didn't know anything about any of that other stuff. Now at this point, she's in my life. She's proud of me. You know what I mean? So yeah, that next journey was just like, hey, how do you navigate it now when now you're keeping all his secrets? Now he's making me think that we're going to do something differently. But
so you went from 3 years of working for him, in a sense, like trafficked, and then to now you're working as a sex worker for yourself.
I was working as a sex worker for myself, but at the same time, it's still kind of like working for him because I still wanted to be with him. I still very much so loved him. I still wasn't ready to leave him. So at that particular point, I felt like, okay, my money is being used to pay the bills and do all the stuff, but maybe I'm not handing it over in a white envelope. It's just a direct deposit now. Do you get what I'm saying? It's like the money's legal now.
Yeah.
It's not, you know what I'm saying? Because at that particular time, I mean, I started filing taxes, like doing stuff, you know what I'm saying? That I got my birth certificate back.
Oh, wow.
I could leave at any point. That's when I really felt my freedom, is when I had my stuff. Yeah, and I had access to my stuff. But I never mentally felt free. I felt like he was always going to have his thumb on my neck because I had just had a lot of information. I was with him for a long time. I knew his moves. I had a lot of information. I made him a lot of money, and that scared the shit out of him. So I just felt like he was going to always follow me around. So I survived that. You know what I'm saying? Where, now we're not, to me, he was still who he was. He was still a pimp. You know what I'm saying? But he was trying to evolve and do other stuff,
So even though you were able to, so it sounds like able to leave, like he wasn't holding against your will.
Yes, he wasn't holding me against my will.
You still chose to work as a sex worker.
Yes.
Do you think it was based off like just a conditioned mind, like because that's all you knew from 18 up into how you were now?
100% that part. 100% just also knowing that, like, at the time my sisters are now in college. Before they were in high school. Now they're in college. I wanted to help. It also had to do with, now I was just really good at what I was doing. So I had regulars. So I was still a sex worker, but it was mostly my regulars.
Yeah.
I was really loving the real estate that we were doing. And I was in a position, he had, he made my credit good. So I was able to get homes and stuff like that. So, you know what I mean? He did. So again, it was just like his way back in. It's like, see, now you have the credit. I told you I was going to do this. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, now let's get this, So a lot of times it's just like, it was just always something. But at the end of the day, it was probably Stockholm Syndrome. It was a really bad soul tie. And any love that I had for him was all based off of false pretenses. But there was no conversations about mental health awareness. I had no idea what state of mind. I've been in survival since like 10 years old. Didn't even know.
Yeah.
Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I had childhood trauma from the time my dad left. Had no clue. You know what I'm saying? I was resentful of my father leaving for a long time. Didn't realize I was trying to replace him. Even calling him daddy, it's like, I would never call a man daddy today. Not even sexually. And that's so, like, you know what I mean? At one point I was like, I have healed that relationship with my father, where it's like, I can't. It doesn't feel right in my stomach anymore.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's just trauma.
Do you think at any point in time of that, those 7 years, you knew this gentleman, that he truly cared about you or loved you?
I do, but I think it was because I made him a lot of money. I truly think. And
It's
I ran,
conditional then.
and I would really ran his household good. He never had as many bitches as he had when he had me. And I'm saying that not cocky. I'm
Yeah.
saying that because that's when I realized, like, holy shit, they are not here for him. They are here for me. Some of them didn't even have relations with him, not even sexual relations. I really made that shit look good. You know what I mean? And then now I'm like, now he was using me for the fact that, like, I had businesses and things like that. So now he's making it seem like one leads to the other, when that's not true. You have to go,
like, using an example, like y'all can get like her.
yes, the same way he did that other girl with me, but then again, when I moved up the ranks, she left. So they call it the 7-year itch in the game. So at about 7 years, girls always leave and do their own thing. You know what I mean? So once she, the one girl that left, I mean, she was actually there longer than 7 years, close to 10 or 15 years, but she got tired of his bullshit and left. But again, she always came back, you know what I mean, for different things that he needed. So I guess the friendship remained. But truthfully, like, he really made you dependent on him for so much, for information, because no matter what you were doing, like, you were seeking him in some way. And that's truly what I went to therapy for, because of course, I don't want to be with someone who's trafficking me. So take all the trafficking out. I had to realize this like a few days ago in therapy, that I've still been looking for the version of him that I liked in men. And I'm just like, what the fuck? That's not okay. You know what I'm saying? Because there was just so much charisma, so much, he was a very smart person. And it's just like, dag, how does somebody use so much intelligence for bad? It makes me feel guilty that it's like, I don't want to say anything positive about him, but he had good qualities. And again, I just think that's why I always say, hey, in a human experience, I don't know his experience. I don't know his story from he's 9 years old. I don't know that much about his backstory, but from the moment I met him, I knew who he was. And it felt like he also had multiple personalities. It was like, okay, this is the guy I fell in love with. This was the pimp who he had to be in order to save face so everybody can go to work, and there was organization and there was structure around how we were making money. And then this was this funny, business savvy, really, quirky person that had he spent more time cultivating that,
Yeah.
oh my God, he would have, made a whole bunch of more money doing that he would have never needed to do anything nefarious like pimping. You know what I'm saying?
And when you finally decided to get out, so you're working for him 3 years, you start working for yourself, sex worker, for another few years.
Yeah.
And you finally cut ties with him. What was it that like pushed you, encouraged you, or gave you the strength to be like, I'm leaving this life, I'm leaving him. You want more or better for yourself?
To be honest, I found out some devastating news about one of my friends, and that had to do with him. And I didn't know, and I'm not going to share it because it's her story to share. Yeah. But when I found that out, I had no fucking clue, and it broke my heart to the core. And I was like, holy shit, you experienced this version of him? Never knew. She never told me. She told me years later when I started telling her, like, he's beating me up. I need to figure out how to leave. I need to save money, but he's always in my bank accounts. Like, and then she just laid it on me, what happened to her. And I was like, what? So it just seemed like my spirit has always been able to be stronger for other people than myself. I've always felt like, oh, I could be the sacrifice. Oh, I can go through the hard times. Oh, I could deal with the ass whooping. Oh, I could do this. Not you. Not, you get what I'm saying? So when she told me that, I was pissed, and I was like, okay, that was the first strike. And then he just got really violent. He started using for the first time when he was like 47. I'm like, you're 47. You choose to use cocaine for never touched it, never smoked weed, barely drank. He would sip champagne. He must have known that could have taken over his life. Well, it did. It took over his life. And next thing you know, he was just doing it all the time, which I loved because I got a lot of freedom. Now I don't have to be in charge and keep all his shit together. However, it was a dark path. He was very violent, ups and downs, and I was the one who followed all the rules to keep myself from experiencing the violence that I witnessed him with others. I witnessed so much violence that I'm just like, I'ma listen. Even if I don't like it, I'ma listen, and I would journal. But yeah, no, once he started putting his hands on me, I got thrown down a few stairs and thrown into a few empty tubs. I was done. Damn. I lost a child, which I didn't need to have in the first place. But
have you seen Training Day?
I have with Denzel Washington.
Like when he threw him in a tub like that?
Yes, I got thrown in the tub like that. Yeah, it was pretty bad.
So that's kind of what itched you to finally.
And I was always someone that was really like, so he mostly was abusive to me from the neck down because he wanted me to. I still had to show up.
Oh, wow.
When I started showing up with black eyes and busted lips, it actually changed how I looked at abuse. It was one thing when you were just punching, kicking me, throwing me around. No one saw those bruises.
Yeah.
So I could show up anywhere happy. No one would know. But when I started having black eyes and busted lips to where people knew I was being abused, it was embarrassing. And it was actually his daughter who said to me one day, "Why do you let dad treat you like that?"
Oh, wow.
And I don't know, something in my spirit just woke me up because I gave a fuck about what this little girl thought of me. I was in her life from the time she was 4 years old. I did everything to protect her view of her father and me. She did not know about the lifestyle. She did not know about all this stuff. And I tried, at least I thought that that's what I was doing. But you can't hide shit from kids. They know too much. And when she said that, I think that broke me apart because I'm showing up in the community as one person and I'm going home to him beating me up. He's got other women on the side. Like, people don't even know our backstory. It just didn't feel right. It wasn't aligned anymore. And I also started going to church. And the funny thing is we started going to church together. So he took me to church. I took it seriously and he didn't. You'd be surprised. There's a couple of pastors who are ex-pimps, but that's a whole nother story.
I seen how they came out. What's his name? TD Jakes and stuff like that with that Diddy stuff. So who knows?
Listen, because people change their life. Humans are humans, and we have to give people the opportunity to. Because honestly, I don't know what he's been doing for the last 10 or 15 years of his life. But if I saw him again, I would not want him to be doing bad. Do you understand what I mean? I don't know. That's just me. Like, I just feel like there's a human. I'm sure if you interviewed him, he could tell you this, that, and the third. That's why he felt compelled to do what he was doing. I don't know. I just feel like everyone has a story and deserve forgiveness and grace and love. And that's truly what God's image is about. So yeah, I just started going to church. I took it way more seriously than him. And I just started listening. And one thing that stuck with me, the pastor said, is like, you know, to leave a relationship was abuse, adultery, or addiction. And those 3 A's. And I was like, damn, I got all this going on over here,
shit.
you know? And I said to myself, do you leave after someone has given you, 10 amazing years? I didn't have, in my head, he gave me 10 amazing years. When I told that to my sisters, 10 amazing years, they went in. It's almost like they had a piece of paper with every like aggression or offense he's ever done over the last, and I was like, damn, you kept track. I forgot. I was so good at blacking it out, not remembering, moving on, pushing it forward. I didn't even remember. And it was them, it was his daughter, and then I was just like, yeah, I can't continue living a lie. And then social media became more prevalent. Now I'm on social media. So I'm just like, it's even more fraudulent. And I know there's a lot of fraudulent stuff going on, but my integrity is important to me. And I show up the way that I show up, and I was not finna show up this way in the community. And then there's a whole thing going on in the background, and then I didn't want to be embarrassed in that way, so I was like, I gotta go.
That's good.
Yeah.
And so church kind of helped saved you and open you up and start changing your life. What were some of the things you started to do for work, or would you start doing professionally, I guess, for work? Because I would assume 10 years of doing what you were doing, you're almost conditioned to only know a certain way. It could be scary. Like, all I know is that, and it fast money.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm able to make X amount of money in a short amount of time. Now I got to I might have to put a little more effort.
Right.
What was like the next step?
The next step was just me and a conversation with God, and telling him, and he put it on my spirit that he would make sure that I always had a way, and he would provide, and he told me to trust him, and I did. And I just started one thing after the other, like a couple of things that I just remember happening, because I was sleeping in my friend's casita. He had let me stay. Again, I've always been a relationship builder. I've never burned any of the guys that I dated. I've never burned any of the situations, not their families. I've never disclosed their business. Like, I've literally been entrusted in their circle for a very long period of time. So when I needed help, they helped me. So this particular guy, I was like, listen, I'm out of the game. So I'm not asking you to be, my regular, but I do need a place to stay. I could pay a nominal rent, yada, yada, yada. He was like, absolutely not. You could stay here for as long as you need to. Wow. And get your shit together, and I will not bother you or touch you. And, my brain was like, I'm locking the door. Because I'm like, he's definitely going to touch me. But he didn't. And I stayed there for 9 months.
Wow.
The first 3 months I slept. And then I started doing stupid shit. I started using cocaine. I started doing drugs. I started spiraling because I didn't know what to do. And now I had all this freedom to do whatever I wanted to do. And I was only in control of myself that I started self-sabotaging. I started very destructive behavior. I also never engaged in any sexual activities without transaction without him before. So I just started being super promiscuous for no reason. A lot of it had to do with low self-worth, low self-esteem. And then I just dealt with all that shit. And then I got pregnant. And then my son next became a motivation. It was like, God was like, I just felt like it was always God because there was never a decision. I was doing stupid shit and making dumb decisions. When I had got the job, it was a friend of mine in California who offered me a job. We were both talking about our guys and leaving them. And she's like, rich lady in California. She's like, oh, I have a cannabis company in Vegas. You can work for me. And I'm like, you do? She's like, yes. And I was like, all right, I'm moving to Vegas. You know what I'm saying? And I worked for her cannabis company for a few years and then realized she wasn't a good boss. But that's the industry I started out with. Yeah. So I started out in the cannabis industry just to really get on my foot because prior to that was like my first job at like 30. Because before that, I considered myself an entrepreneur, not just because of, being a sex worker and being able to have a lot of regulars, but I also had real estate, but I had to sell it and give him all the money when we separated. So
damn, that's a good story and journey. Now, in the game, 10 years, you get out, you get help, you find yourself in the church, God's speaking to you, you have your beautiful son. That's another motivation.
Yeah.
You got the job, like things are slowly starting to trickle up in your favor, right? Now you are an advocate for human trafficking and you work with the Cupcake Girls. Can you tell us a little bit about what the Cupcake Girls are and what they do? I know you kind of touched on the beginning, but I want to make sure we highlight because somebody who sees this, I don't want them to say, hey, I say respectfully, not just another whole story.
Right.
I want them to hear it, but somebody watching it might either be in your situation or know somebody. Right. And I want to make sure they get proper resources, especially if they live here in Vegas.
Right. So I was doing the work at the same time, but I had a little bit of cushion because all that, like I said, he was a very flashy guy. So I was able to sell some of the jewelry and the things that I had to have a little bit of cash. So I wasn't completely without money. So with that little bit of cash that I had, I was able to get the job with my friend because she didn't pay well either. You know what I'm saying? But that's kind of what gave me the buffer to be able to do like small investments and things like that. Moving forward past that, because we were talking about the Cupcake Girls. Yeah. I had a high-risk pregnancy in 2021 to 2022. I think my son was born in 2022. Yeah, so in 2022. And it caused me to not be able to work. Well, first there was a hostile takeover of the cannabis company that I was working for. That's another conversation. But after that happened, we were all without jobs. Everybody, all me, all my coworkers and everything. And then I could have gotten another job in the cannabis industry. But I was frustrated with the cannabis industry because, again, the reason why I brought up having a little bit of money is because I kept one of the houses and started a business here I thought I was going to be able to make that successful, called the Kush Lounge, which was a cannabis friendly venue where we can smoke weed, yada, yada, yada. But a long story short, it was ahead of my time. It got shut down. They said I was acting on behalf of a consumption lounge and accused me of selling weed, which I've never sold weed. I've dated guys who sold weed, but I didn't. I just said, it's BYOB, bring your own bud. You know what I'm saying? You had membership, you had access. It's a beautiful house. And it was popular with celebrities, with locals here. And I think what got me in trouble was getting so much publicity from the High Times magazine, Vegas Cannabis. Everybody was in the place. I mean, they were doing Women's Grow, LVMMA. It became a big deal here. And I was like, oh, wait, too much attention, because I still wasn't out of that situation 100%. I'm just like, I don't want and my past coming up. I was still walking in the shame. I was only 3 years removed from him. Yeah. So I still felt like I was walking in shame. If he saw me too successful, he might try to come after me, extort me, things like that. I wasn't ready to tell my story. Move forward. My son, super motivational. My mom and my sister both moved out here, supported me in my journey of becoming a mother, made sure that they would help me. My son's dad is very supportive too, but we've grown a lot, so we're in a really, really good space right now. My younger son, though, when I had the high-risk pregnancy, I just lived off of my savings. So I blew through in my entire savings, made a couple bad real estate investments. And now I'm like, fuck, I'm back to being flat broke again. So again, every time I'm flat broke, my brain always goes to Asia. You know how to make money. But you know what you can't take from somebody is the information that they learn. The same thing that he taught me and how to use it to do bad, I'm like, you could use it to do good. Could you fundraise for an organization and raise money that way to where now you are asking people for money, but you're not asking for them for money for yourself? You don't care about you in the instance. Right now, you see the bigger vision, which is a resource center to help those who are just like you, but they don't got to know that you're just like them. That was what I was wanting to do. So I wanted to be impactful, but I still didn't want to share my story.
Yeah.
Then the executive director brought me to a human trafficking awareness event, and I looked at these white women on the panel, and I looked in the audience, and I saw black and brown faces, and I said, I would do my God again, put it on my heart, and told me I got to go speak. I looked over to my best friend who also knew my story. She was the only other person that I told my story to. And I said, I think I got to go on the panel. I can't moderate this one. And she's like, are you sure? Are you ready? I was like, I don't think I'll ever be ready, but I don't know. It just downloaded on me. Like I didn't even want it. I wish I could have shook it off, but I couldn't. And I spoke at the human trafficking awareness panel, and I did not have any confidence. My voice was shaking. I was scared. I definitely felt like I was committing the ultimate sin, because we agreed to never tell these stories, to never talk about them, to when you are when you're removed from him, everything that's with him stays with him. I mean, he has all my pictures. I never left with a picture. I have really phenomenal pictures from that era that 10 years of my life, I don't even have. I didn't have social media to keep it up with. You know what I'm saying? So I looked at it now and I was like, no, I'm going to tell this story. And I told my story. When I tell you, it was like a high. I felt the best that I ever felt in close to 10 years. I did not know that's what I needed. No fucking clue. Walking around, hoping no one, in the back of my head, hoping nobody finds out. And then when you tell it, you control your fucking narrative. You decide, and it's so empowering. You decide what you want to share. You decide what you don't want to share. It's empowering because now you're not worrying about if someone sees me on social media that was trafficked like me, that want to blow me up, or if he sees me and tries to extort me, or I can now be as successful as I want to be. I could say what I want to say. I can go where I want to go. I have been living in fear of being too successful, making too much money, because I know that I have I know I have a past. And I'm like, how do I make sure my past doesn't catch up with my present or my future? That's what I've been trying to prevent. How do I make sure my children don't walk in shame? How do I make sure I create generational wealth? And he doesn't try to take it, because he's been the only person that's always tried to take everything from me. So I was like, you know what I'm saying? And then, I told it and I felt better than I ever felt. Then I went home and I told my mom that I shared my story, and man, she cried. She was happy for me that I got it out, but her initial reaction was she kind of reacted poorly. Like she was devastated. She was embarrassed. She kind of, she said some mean things, but she came back and apologized and said, hey, it's your story. I'm glad that you got it out. But it just makes her feel like a bad mom, and it makes her feel like a failure. And my mom loved me so much. Yeah. I know she would have did anything for me. She did not mean to go to jail. She did not mean to be oppressed. She did not mean to keep us in poverty and not have the money that would create the vulnerability. She didn't think that living in the suburbs of a hood, because, she took her Section 8 out the hood, thinking she was doing a better thing by not bringing us in the hood. But I was around the corner from the hood. I was still in the hood. Yeah. Do you understand what I mean? Just because we were right there in the thick of it. I was a train ride away from the city anytime I wanted to. At that time, AOL was brand new. So I was meeting strangers on AOL as a freaking kid, just in Imes, like, oh, let's meet at Times Square. It's like, who is this person?
Damn.
Yes. So I was already crazy. You know what I'm saying? So I really offer her so much grace and forgiveness, because I don't blame her for anything. I feel like I got thrusted into being a grown-up and took it on and made a lot of choices that I'm not proud of, but I'm not in shame of. I'm not embarrassed by. I don't feel any lesser than because that's the route that I went. So and that right there took me out of bondage. That was the most empowering thing that ever happened to me. Besides being financially free, I really never felt financially free. So now I really do, because I'm just like, you can't, at this point, what can he do to me, or what can the girls do to me, or what can anybody? All they've actually been doing is asking for help. So I've made my page is no longer private. It hasn't been private for close to 2 years now. And now girls from my past have seen me, and they are either still in the lifestyle, or maybe they had a baby with their trafficker, or maybe they haven't seen me in a long time. So I've actually got connected to multiple women who I've been able to connect to resources through the Cupcake Girls. And then they fully support the vision of building out this resource center of places to go, because no one talks about it. I mean, even during COVID, like even if we talk about consensual sex workers, during COVID, there was no money for them. There was no PPP. The suicide rate went up so high for sex workers. There was no work. There was no strip club open. They couldn't pay their rent. I mean, we have one of the ruthless eviction processes here in Nevada than most states. You know what I mean? So these folks went through so much, and they don't talk about it, mental health, and they don't talk about how there's trafficking going on in brothels and strip clubs, and no one asks those girls, are they okay? You know, what's their dynamic with finances? Once you teach the financial dynamic, once you understand that, oh, you don't need anybody. I felt like I was the grown-up living in the 20s where I thought I needed a man to get a bank account. Like I thought I really needed him for everything. I did not know I could walk into a bank. He had me thinking I needed him to get a bank account, to get a car, and I'm just like so scared. I'm like, oh, when I go by myself, what's going to happen? I took a man with me the first time I bought a car on my own because I really believed you needed a man to get a car.
Damn.
Seriously. Like I didn't know I could just go in there by myself and do it. And I'm talking about a new car, because I knew you could get like something used or auction, but I'm like, I don't want that. I want a new car. But I was really like jacked up in the head in that way, to where it was like everything. He did everything.
And this is like one of your first times really, besides you telling your story to the public. Yeah. Like,
yeah, I mean, this is the first time I've gotten this detail, this
that's
raw,
good. And it's going to be all over
We're
the
gonna
internet. Get millions of views.
Yeah.
But, you know, I'm very proud of you, because I know how it feels to feel shame on the story. I have the same story. I wasn't hoeing or anything, but it's just, man, when you said you felt so much power and so like after you're able, that's why I do this show. That's why I want people on here to be able to say it. Mm-hmm. People who haven't yet. Yeah. And maybe they have. And I, from my experience, the more I've told mine, the more I've shared those deep, dark moments to where I was embarrassed, thought I was ain't shit, the more I'm like, damn, okay, look at me now. Like, look at me now. It'd be different if you didn't make no changes, but you decided to make changes. Mm-hmm. You went through some real shit, and your kids are going to be very proud of you.
I hope so. I want my kids.
What?
That's who I care about.
To hear what you went through, because it's more than just, I was just out here stripping and hoeing. It was some real traumatic stuff. And as they become young men and all that, it's going to help them develop, I would like to think, I'm not no therapist, better understanding for women and respect for women, how to treat them and stuff like that, because they know what their mama had to go through to make them get to where they're at. Mm-hmm.
I probably won't share it with them until they're older. Oh, they're gonna see this.
I'm gonna tag them. I'm gonna tag them. I'm just kidding. No, but when we get older.
I also think it's important as a Black woman to share my story, because I think we always have conversations about angry Black women, strong Black women, but we don't know that Black woman's story. And I think it's so important that we give each other grace and understanding and build trust with one another, so that we truly can understand that like we're more alike than we are separated. And even if you weren't trafficking, maybe it was, some type of other trauma, whether, there's a whole host of different things that could have happened to you in your life, that sharing is very important, because it's part of your healing. I'm not saying you necessarily need to do a podcast, but I'm saying that keeping it inside, like, doesn't give a younger girl next to you the game that she needs to not make that same mistake. Yeah. I want my young Black girls, and the young Black girls in my sphere of influence that I could reach, to know that now I'm thriving, I'm happy, I'm successful, I have experienced joy, and I am experiencing love, to understand, and that's love with myself, within myself, for myself, by myself. That is not me saying the love of a man, which is how I attributed love before. You know what I mean? If a man didn't love me, that's all that it mattered. Now I have, oh my gosh, I don't even need, that's a plus, and I love having that too, but just loving myself in itself is something I love experiencing that. So just being able to say that, and also changing the dynamic around trafficking and bringing awareness, because trafficking is a big word. And we see even with the Diddy case and how these words are used. Just because someone hits you or beats on you doesn't necessarily make them a trafficker. There needs to be force, manipulation, coercion. You need to not have access and control of your own money. There is things that are defining this, and there are things that define it on a federal level, and then there is how the organization defines it, right? So I just think that I want to make sure that they're not feeling ashamed, because we do have pimp culture in Black culture to where it's just like part of our culture. So it's like nothing, you know what I mean? And I speak of this because I remember going into a room right now, and I have a friend who, her brother and her father, and she comes from a line of pimps. So she had enough game to not go that direction, right? But she didn't have the insights of what going that direction looked like until I had a conversation with her. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So she had no sensitivity to it, because it's like, oh, well, you chose this. It's like, well, not exactly. You know what I'm saying? It chose, like, yes, at a certain point you are making a decision, but you have to understand when there's grooming involved and manipulation and coercion, you're making a decision without having facts. So that's where it's wrong. Do you get what I'm saying? Yeah.
And your story's phenomenal. You know what I mean? And based off your story, what you've been through in life, is there any type of movie character, book, or TV show that you feel like you relate to?
I don't know. I just like being superheroes, so I'm always like, ooh, could I be like a Storm or something like that? Or, I like superhero energy. But no, I in this space in my life, I really like just being me. And I am still trying to watch movies. I mean, I didn't really there's so many things that I haven't done, or movies I haven't seen. Like, there's just a lot that I missed out on.
We were talking about yesterday, and it's crazy. It came up on my Hulu. It's called Zola. Zola Story.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she's about a girl who was a working girl. It was on Twitter. It became a book and became a movie. It's on Hulu. It's called Zola Story.
There's a lot of stories. And because you brought up something earlier about Paramount, and that's what, this might be an off the mic conversation, but I did interviews with them too when I was in the thick of the game. He brought me there to Warner Brothers, and
what you think you was there for, girl?
I was there giving them stories. So I'm curious as to, and he probably got the check for that, but I'm just saying, in terms of stories and trick stories that the production studios wanted, yeah, we used to do that like weekly for like a few months. Writers would sit in the room with us, ask us stories, ask us scenarios, ask us stuff, and I'm just like, is this really happening? And I used to ask him, I'm like, I can really tell them this? He'd be like, yes, you're allowed to speak freely, and it's all documented. So I'd be interested in finding that content.
As we wrap up here, what's a quote you live by and why?
This is so corny. You want me to say, this is the first thing that came to my head, so I'm going with it.
Hard out here for a pimp?
No, that's not corny. That's kind of cool. It's called, it's just because, the mom in me is coming out. If at first you don't succeed, try again. The little engine that could, like, I know it sounds so corny, and it's like, but I mean, that's all I got. You know what I'm saying?
That's all you need.
That's all you need. I just,
it don't take a lot
I get
of
up
words.
and I try again, and I don't try in my shame. I don't try in my failure. I don't try in the loss. I try in the effort in the present moment with the same energy and the same momentum that I started it with. You know what I mean? I don't walk in any less than that. So that's it.
Well, Asia, very proud of you.
Thank you.
Your story is very inspiring. Like I said, I know people are going to hear this, feel inspired, and
I hope
people who
so.
didn't know, they're going to hear like, what? That was your story? Like, that's amazing. Ain't no hope. It's going to happen.
Yes.
Even if it's just one person, that one person is going to trickle to somebody else. And just your bravery of being able to want to share, that's some deep shit you went through. You know what I mean?
I want to share more.
So don't flip your phone open and record and post. What are you waiting for?
We will talk about that later. I'm actually not good at that, but that's on my goals for this year.
You weren't good at doing the other shit until you started doing it more also.
Yeah, so I have to get a schedule.
You gotta do it.
Yeah, I got to get a schedule around posting.
On the way home while you're driving, put it on. If you have a mount, just record yourself talking. Hey, I just did this podcast talking about my whole story. Drop your email if you want me to send you the link to my YouTube when I share everything. Boom, there you go. There's an idea. There's always solutions to problems.
Right. Well, I would like to say that's a great segue into this. There are always solutions to problems. And the second highest problem in the state of Nevada is that we are the second state for trafficking. So a solution to that problem could potentially be the Resource Center. So I would like to do an all call for those who are interested in supporting the Resource Center by the Cupcake Girls. So it's the Cupcake Girls Resource Center. It is going to be a trauma-informed space, and it's going to be open to the community for women who are experiencing trafficking, whether you're currently being trafficked or experiencing experiencing it any time in your life, as well as marginalized sex workers, but it's also a place to heal from domestic violence and sexual abuse or sexual violence. So it's going to be a safe space in the community. The Cupcake Girls are still very much developing it. It's just part of the vision. I see it being something that's necessary, just because I think we're the only state that has legalized prostitution. I don't know any other states that do. Maybe not in Clark County, but I do think it would be beneficial. There's 400,000 registered sex workers. So that's a lot. I don't know if they all live here or that's just a gross number over the years, but that's wild.
Yeah. Well, thank you for dropping that gem. I'm going to make sure I tag your Instagram and the Cupcake Girls Instagram in the description of this bio, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Great story. Please go show her Instagram love, the Cupcake Girls love. There's people who need to feel your support to let them know they're not alone. Yeah, I have no words for you besides just share your story with somebody, even with yourself. Talk to it on a camera and re-listen to it. The more you share your trauma and your story, the more healing you're going to become. Help somebody help the person you needed when you were at your darkest moment. That's what's key about it. You're going to feel so much fulfillment in that. Thank you for tuning in. 2 words. Adios, baby.